Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Gut Reset Summit. I'm your host, Dr. John Dempster, and today I'm extremely honored to be joined by Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride. And Dr. Natasha graduated as a medical doctor in 1984 in Russia, and in the following years gained postgraduate degrees in neurology and in human nutrition. And that led to her expertise as the creator of the GAPS concept and the GAPS diet. Very well known. Many of you may have already heard of this diet and read some of her books. And she's the author of many books. In fact, The Gut and Psychology Syndrome, which is a natural treatment of autism, ADHD, dyslexia, depression, and schizophrenia, and also The Gut and Physiology Syndrome, natural treatment for allergies, autoimmune illness, gut problems, et cetera, et cetera. And Dr. Natasha, on top of being an accomplished author, is also an organic regenerative farmer, which I'm thrilled to talk to you about today, and a very popular keynote speaker. So, Dr. Natasha, welcome to the Gut Reset Summit.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. And, the way I like to start this sort of conversation off is many of us have a story, and we often have a very interesting story is how we ended up in healthcare and how we ended up being, a specialist in some of the areas we are. Can you share your story and how you got into the GAPS diet?
Well, it's fate. we all have a life path and we follow it. And maybe only later on in life, we realized that everything that happened to us in previous years was right and correct. And we were on the path. When I was a toddler, I was 18 months old. I had a food poisoning, which I didn't recover from. And I was literally dying. So my parents, who lived in the city at that time, that was Soviet Union, and they contacted my grandparents who lived high up in the mountains of Ural Mountains. This is a chain of mountains which divides the continent into Europe and Asia. So they lived in a small village where there was one little shop which sold spades and buckets and salt, and that's it. That's about it. So everybody produced their own food. So my grandmother got on a train, went to the city, picked me up, took me to the village. And my parents haven't seen me for more than a year. And when they came to visit, when they came to the village to see how I'm doing, I was a healthy little girl. My grandmother healed me. And what I've realized years later, what she healed me with was the GAPS diet. Exactly the diet that I had to rediscover for myself later on in my life, in my 30s. So the way I've discovered it was that my own child got ill. He was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3, and I had to find a way of saving him. And at that time, we didn't even have internet. We had the local library, and that was about it, and the phone. So, majority of people today can't even imagine such a thing. So all I had was the phone. I could contact some people, I could talk to people, and I could get books, and that was about it. And the search for helping my own child led me to the whole concept of GAPS, of developing the whole thing, of writing my books, of opening my clinic, of helping people all over the world. Since then, the GAPS concept became a global phenomenon. My first book, Gut and Psychology Syndrome, which focuses on the brain, because at that time I focused on autism, other learning disabilities, mental illness in adults, and epilepsy, and other everything to do with the brain. So that book, it's a yellow book, and it focuses on the brain. So since I've written it in 2004, it's been translated into 26 languages. More translations are coming. So this is something I never imagined that the world will need this information, but obviously we do. People in every country around the world needs this information quite badly, because the processes that began in the Western countries are spreading all over the globe. So having worked with autistic children, hyperactive children, dyslexic, dyspraxic, oppositional defiant disorder children, then adults with schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, anorexia, depression, with epilepsy, and all sorts of other problems, I've realized that these people are physically very ill too. That the same thing that caused their mental illness and learning disability causes physical problems in their bodies, all sorts of a plethora of physical problems. So that led me to writing the second book called Gut and Physiology Syndrome. That's this one, it's a bit thicker. That one came in 2020. And this one focuses on the rest of the body. You can't divide human body into compartments. It functions as a whole. It functions as one. So, and the cause of all illnesses, chronic physical illnesses or mental illnesses, the functions of the brain and problems with the lungs and the heart and the joints and the muscles and the bones and the skin and the kidneys and the digestive system, they all stem from the same place. They begin in the gut. This was discovered first by Hippocrates thousands of years ago. And he made this statement: all diseases begin in the gut. And today we have absolutely no doubt that he was absolutely correct. Indeed, every disease begins in the gut. The reason for it is that human body is a microbial community. That's what we've discovered now with recent research into microbiome, into microbes in the human body. We've now established the fact that your body has more microbes in it than human cells.
Mm-hmm.
We are microbial communities first and foremost, and this planet belongs to microbes. It doesn't belong to us. So, and the majority of this microbial community in your body lives in your digestive system. Why? Because if you ask any microbiologist, what is the most powerful influence on a microbial community in nature, the answer will be immediately food.
Mm-hmm.
You change food supply to a microbial community in a petri dish in a laboratory, everything will change in a couple of hours, literally very fast. Certain species of microbes will start disappearing, other species will appear out of nowhere, and the whole microbial community changes. The same happens in the human body. Food is the most powerful influence on our microbial community, and majority of them are sitting in the gut because that's where we place our food, right? That's why the majority of them are in the gut. And every morsel of food that you put in your mouth changes everything in your body. That makes food the most powerful medicine for human beings. It is the most powerful influence on our health and disease. In a healthy person, this microbial community is highly balanced. It has all kinds of creatures living together in one community, starting from fungi, viruses, bacteria, protozoa, archaea, 2-meter-long things, and microscopic things, and everything in between. They all should be present there. They're all normal part of the microbial community. And as long as they're all present in harmonious, balanced community, they control each other. They don't allow any one of them to become a problem, because every microbe in the world can cause disease. Even those that we consider to be beneficial, they're still capable of causing illnesses. Problem is, we human beings are very good at creating imbalances in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Every chemical that you swallow with food or drink, antibiotics that you get from the doctors, agricultural chemicals, most of which are antibiotics in their nature. Most agricultural chemicals are broad-spectrum antibiotics. One of the most commonly used ones at the moment is called glyphosate. It's the main ingredient in Roundup herbicide that people spray their driveways and their gardens where their children play. And it's one of the most toxic things in the world, glyphosate, and it is a broad-spectrum antibiotic. Today, every bit of food that you buy in a supermarket comes from industrial agriculture, and it contains these agricultural chemicals, even things labeled organic. Organic concept has been corrupted in the last 10 years, and it contains the same amounts of glyphosate and other chemicals as non-organic produce. There's a lot of cheating in that sector. So organic label in the supermarket doesn't mean anything anymore, unfortunately. So if you buy your food in supermarkets, you are eating antibiotics for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and in between. And of course, antibiotics would kill microbes. No antibiotic in the world can kill everything. It only kills a narrow group of microbes. And that group of microbes was within a huge, balanced microbial community in your body. Once you kill a little bit of it, you create imbalance. The harmony is gone.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, species that used to be controlled by these microbes and were perfectly beneficial as part of the balanced community suddenly get out of control, overgrow, and become pathogenic. So your own microbial community in your body becomes your biggest enemy. It becomes pathogenic. It starts destroying your health. It starts causing symptoms. It starts causing disease. And the majority of it which is sitting in your digestive system, will eat that food that comes along, will convert it into millions of poisonous chemicals. At the same time, they would damage the integrity of the gut lining in a person. So your gut wall becomes porous and leaky. It's like a sieve. So all these millions of poisons absorb through that sieve into your blood, into your lymph, and get distributed around the body. And wherever they get you in your body, they will cause disease. If they get in the brain, they would cause any manner of brain dysfunction, from the mildest of just forgetting where you put your keys, or forgetting, being a bit forgetful and a bit emotional and not sleeping too well, all the way to full-blown schizophrenia, psychotic episodes, epilepsy, or something drastic, panic attacks, anxiety, or whatever else. If it gets in your lungs, you can get asthma, you can get other lung problems. If it gets in your heart, you can get atrial fibrillation. It's very common nowadays. It's caused by your gut flora or something else wrong. If it gets into your joints or into other connective tissue in your body, then you can get rheumatoid arthritis, you can get osteoarthritis, you can get lupus, you can get fibromyalgia, you can get myalgic encephalomyelitis, you can get chronic fatigue syndrome. If it's in your skin, you can get psoriasis, eczema, or other skin problems. If it gets into your kidneys, you can get nephropathy, chronic cystitis. Wherever it gets to, you get diseases. Allergies are very much a GAPS condition. So every disease begins in the gut, whether you have digestive problems or not. I've had many people with chronic diseases who say, my digestive system seems to be okay. No constipation, no diarrhea, no gas, no pain. I seem to be all right in that department. But when we test their gut flora, we find it's very abnormal. When we test the permeability of their gut wall, we find that it's very leaky, very porous. All sorts of things are absorbing, which should not be absorbing. And when we start healing their gut with the GAPS Nutritional Protocol, rheumatoid arthritis disappears, Hashimoto disappears, multiple sclerosis goes, anxiety disappears, panic attacks disappear, the person starts sleeping well, psoriasis disappears, eczema disappears, allergies disappear. Any disease disappears if you heal the digestive system. And that was the GAPS Nutritional Protocol was designed for. And GAPS diet is the center of it, the most important part of it, because remember, food is the most powerful influence on any microbial community in nature. So when you change your food, you're changing your microbial community in your body, and as a result, you're healing. You're changing everything in your body, no matter how far away from the digestive system your symptoms might have developed. So this is how GAPS was born. This is what it is. It's a long answer.
Oh, but listen, I love it. This is absolutely what we need to hear right now. And we're going to talk a lot about the details of how to eat and so forth. But is this what drew you into becoming a organic regenerative farmer?
Absolutely, because I've been working with food
right
for so long. And I understand food very deeply, and I understand what effect it has on people because I've seen it on thousands of people, the effect of food. At some point, at the same time, you learn how food is produced, particularly in the Western world. And you just realize you cannot trust anyone to produce your food. Our agricultural, industrial complex and food industry and big pharma and everything else are so sophisticated, so clever, so well organized. It's, we have no choice but to produce our own food. So 10 years ago, my family and I found a plot of land in East Anglia in the UK, where I live. And it was a very damaged piece of land. It was farmed with chemicals conventionally for more than 100 years. But we were meant to have that particular piece of plot of land. And since then, we have been restoring it, recovering it. And nature is amazingly resilient. In 10 years, this very damaged piece of land turned into a paradise. And when we started, there was no soil on the farm. We've discovered it after we already bought the place, and we tried to plant a few trees. In Britain, it rains. So grass grows on virtually nothing. So, it was there were two huge fields with grass, which looked very green. But when we tried to plant the trees and we tried to dig a hole to put the tree in, we couldn't dig a hole by hand. It was impossible because the topsoil was about this thick, maybe an inch, and the grass was clinging to that. Underneath, there were huge boulders of flint and clay. We could not even dig holes to plant our trees.
Wow.
So we had to employ a local farmer to come with a big digger to dig these holes for us with a machine. And we had to buy tons of organic compost, fill these holes with compost, and plant trees into that compost. That was the only way we could plant trees on our farm. That's how we started. And now we are completely self-sufficient. The only things we buy is salt, spices, fish, of course, wild fish, and olive oil. That's about it. Everything else, meat, milk, eggs, vegetables, fruit, nuts, the farm provides in abundance. And it's amazing, abundance is the word. If you go this way and if you start producing food in a regenerative, organic, loving way, where every part of the farm feeds the other part of the farm, and it's a closed circle where everything is in one circle of life and everything feeds into everything else, your problem in a few years will be to consume everything it produces. Forget about the lack, forget about scarcity. Your problem will be what you do with it all. It will be producing so much for you.
Well, that's a good problem that you have over there. And what makes me think a little bit is, what is the average person that doesn't have a farm or ability to have access to a regenerative farmer? What do we do if we're the ones that are shopping at grocery stores right now? Is there something that we can do to offset the damaging assaults that are happening to us daily?
Easy, absolutely. All it takes is getting organized. In every country, including Western countries, there are good, proper farmers who love their land, love their animals, love their soil, love their birds, love, everything they do, and treat everything properly with love. You find these farmers, if you live in a city, you go to the farmers market. And you go online. You can find them online too, these farmers. And on a farmers market, you take contact details of the farmers, speak to them, and ask them, can I visit your farm? A good, proper, organic farmer will have nothing to hide. He'll be delighted for you to come and visit his farm. So on the weekend, put your family in a car and go and have a lovely day on a farm, Saturday or Sunday. Take your dog with you or whatever. And have a look, are there any chemicals lying about? Are there refrigerators full of antibiotics and steroids? Are the chickens on grass? Are the cows on grass? Are the sheep and pigs on grass? Pigs should be in the forest because that's their natural habitat. All other animals and birds should be on grass, on pasture. And the pasture should be real pasture with 60 or more varieties of grasses and herbs in it. Organic, not just some monoculture of a hybrid grass that is seeded and sprayed with chemicals. That's not pasture.
Right.
That's the lie that the food industry is selling us now in supermarkets, where they sell you grass-fed meat. These animals never see pasture. They sit in a CAFO, in a confined animal factory operation, while the farmer plows some field, sprays it with chemicals, grows you a monoculture of some hybrid grass, harvests it and hauls it into that CAFO and feeds his cows. And he's allowed to call that meat and milk grass-fed. The governments are fully cooperating with the industrial agriculture. In fact, they're ruled by those people who rule the industrial agriculture, by the great corporations all over the world. So you visit that farm and you start buying everything from that farm, whatever that farmer produces. And once you found a few of these farms, it'll be very easy. Just once a week, you drive and you get your weekly supply for the whole family. Talk to your friends and family. I put my clients in touch with each other. So they form groups. They form a group in a city. So then they've got a rota. So you don't have to drive every weekend.
Right.
Somebody will drive and get bits and pieces for everybody and bring it into their apartment in the house in the city, and you can go and pick up your bits and pieces. And when the group becomes big enough, farmers are very happy to deliver into one place.
Yeah, for example, here in Toronto, we have farmers that will actually, if you go and visit the farm and you're happy with their work, they will actually deliver to you. They'll package it up, they'll sell it to you in bulk. It's much more cost effective.
Yeah, absolutely. So it all it takes is just paying attention, being aware of this, being awake, and organizing yourself, getting organized. And this way, rather than dumbly, stupidly pushing that trolley along the supermarket floor and buying God knows what in the supermarket. You buy disease. In a supermarket, you buy disease. You don't buy healthy food in the supermarket. All of the foods in the supermarket cause disease because food is information. The new wonderful science of biophysics tells us, it analyzes these things, and it tells us that food is information, first and foremost. When you're eating, you're putting information into your body. What kind of information does industrial agriculture put into food? And that's, you buy that food in the supermarket. What kind of information you get from supermarket? You get information of greed, abuse, suffering, pain, disease. Is that going to give you good health? That kind of vibration, that kind of energy? What kind of information will you get if you buy from a loving farmer, directly from the farm? Your food will carry information of love and care and nurture, and that will give you good health. And not only you will get that, but you will make some friends. You will meet wonderful people at these farms. You'll make good friends. You'll get your whole family out of the city in the fresh air. You'll get good health for your family. You'll wake up. You will be a different human being. It's wonderful all around. It's just a win-win all around to do that.
So tell me some very specific details to your diet, to the GAPS diet. Let's get into that and how that can be very helpful, not only from a gut perspective, but for healing people from the inside out. What are the actual requirements for a GAPS diet?
GAPS diet is based on traditional diets from all over the world, which women in all traditional tribes and traditional societies for millennia knew. They knew what kind of food to give to a person with digestive problems, a mother who's expecting a baby, or a couple that's trying to conceive, or a warrior who was brought injured from the war. They knew what to give them, and they knew herbs. That's what my grandmother knew, because I spent a lot of my childhood, when I became older and more conscious, I spent a lot of my childhood in that village with my grandparents, or every school holiday I was there. And my grandmother knew herbs, she knew food, she cooked in a certain way, and they produced all of their own food. They had all the animals. She had a milking cow, they had bees, and they had geese and ducks and chickens and a big garden and sheep, all of the animals. And they slaughtered them themselves. There were no slaughterhouses or anything like that. All the animals were slaughtered right there in the yard. Children from a very young age were present at the slaughter and participated in it. And that was very important because as a child, I remember my grandfather giving me a little knife, and we were skinning a lamb together. And the lamb was slaughtered right in front of me. And when, as a child, you participate in that and you watch it and you know how it's done and what's happening, you learn on some visceral level, even bypassing this silly knob, that we all have. You learn on some visceral level, on some very, very deep level, that this is correct and this is right. That's why nobody ever can bamboozle these human beings ever in their life that killing is wrong and that eating meat is wrong in some way or whatever, These silly ideas and bamboozlement come to city people who have never been exposed to the true environment of nature and to animals and to a farming life and how it's all done and how it should be. So on my farm, I have volunteers. They come from all over the world. I teach organic farming. We teach, as a family, we teach. We've taught already hundreds of young people from all over the world, which is wonderful. It's wonderful to see that young people from all over the world are interested. They're concerned about our planet. They're concerned about the ecology. They're interested in how to produce their own food. They really want to know this information. And slaughtering chickens and cockerels is a standard part of the whole training protocol. So they go through this experience. We had many vegans and vegetarians who came here that we converted back to eating meat.
And we're going to talk about that, why that's important.
That's right. And once they go through this experience of actually plucking a bird and dressing a bird and cleaning it and then cooking it and then eating it, something clicks in the human being. Something way deeper than the mind, way deeper than the brain. And they get it. And nobody ever can deceive them again. Nobody ever can bamboozle them again on that subject. They don't ask questions anymore like, killing is wrong or whatever. I've written a book on vegetarianism. It's important to mention. It's not a thick book, and it's got good pictures, interesting pictures here. So this book explains to people, because we live in a world of pro-vegetarian propaganda, and this propaganda is very intense. It's coming from every government in the Western world in particular, because these governments are controlled by the global corporations. And what I've learned myself by being an organic farmer, that on an organic farm, the easiest things to produce, the easiest things to deal with are animals and birds. So meat, eggs, and milk are the easiest things to produce. It takes an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, the rest of the day is free. You can hold a full-time job. But growing vegetables, fruit, gardening, that's where the hard labor is. That's the full-time job. That is why in traditional societies, people didn't grow vegetables that much. Because that's the hardest bit, the hardest part in an organic farm. When you go to the industrial agriculture, these things swap. Growing plant matter for them is easy, profitable, because the scientists worked out a long time ago, decades ago, they hybridize the seed, they coat the seed in chemicals, then they give you a machine for this, a machine for this. One person, one man can serve thousands of acres with all this machinery. And they give them this seed and they plant it, and you spray this on day 5, you spray that on day 14, you spray this on day 20, and it works. You get your yield, you get your perfect looking fields with not a weed inside, perfect harvests, perfect yield, perfect profits. Profit of what? Yield of what? Nobody's asking. That it's full of chemicals and has a low nutritional value. The mainstream is not interested in that. But producing meat, milk, and eggs is a headache for them, for the industrial farmers. It doesn't work because these animals are just refuse to comply with the industrial model. They get sick and they die. That's why they have to slaughter them young and early. That's why they have to feed them antibiotics every day, inject them with steroids, vaccinate them, do God knows what to them, the poor suffering souls. Because they've plowed, because the plant matter is profitable for them. They've plowed all pastures. They take animals and birds off pasture. Nature made them to live on pasture, to eat grass. Took them all off pasture, locked them up in these prisons and overproduce grain. Western world overproduces grain monstrously. They produce monstrous amounts of grain. They're dumping it in the Atlantic Ocean while they're giving the population a lie that we're not producing enough, showing photographs of poor starving children in Africa. These children are starving because of politics, not because of lack of food on the planet. There's plenty of food on the planet. So once they overproduce grain, they have to sell it. They need a market. So they feed that grain to all these poor chickens and other birds and animals in confined factories, animal factory operations. They have not been created by nature to eat grain. Grain makes them sick. They develop arthritis, infertility, allergies. They die from cancer by the age of 2 or 3. That's why they slaughter them early, and that's why they're sick, and it just doesn't work, and it's unprofitable for the industrial agriculture. On top of that, the moguls of the industrial agriculture have invested billions into synthetic meat, synthetic milk, synthetic eggs. Synthetic meat and milk are already in supermarkets. And real animal husbandry is a competition for them. So it is within their commercial interests to make the whole planet vegan, to stop everybody from eating meat, milk, and eggs. So people eat their synthetics and eat their plants, which are profitable and easy for them to produce. That's where the propaganda comes from. And it's funded by these same powerful entities in the world. But what human beings need to understand, and that's what I've discovered through my clinical work, that human beings have a very special digestive system. We are not cows. You see, the scientific fact is that the only things on this planet that can truly digest plant matter, plants, are microbes. Microbes. No other creature in the world can digest plants. Mother Nature used this fact in creating the stomachs of a cow. or goat, or giraffe, or deer, or antelope, or another herbivorous animal. A cow has 3 enormous stomachs. Collectively, it's called rumen. Enormous. The majority of her big belly is occupied by these 3 stomachs. And these stomachs are full of microbes. So the cow is not digesting the grass herself. It's digested by that microbial community for her. We human beings haven't got a rumen. We have a small stomach, very small one. It's the size of, your 2 fists or something like that. And it produces hydrochloric acid. The acidity in a human stomach can be below pH 1 when we're hungry. Very hostile environment for any microbe to hang about. That is why human stomach is almost sterile. It's got virtually no microbes surviving in there. There are a few hanging about, surviving in there in a healthy person. So, but this stomach juice in a human, full of hydrochloric acid and other elements, pepsin and other elements, is perfect for digesting meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. In fact, these are the only things that human stomach can digest. Plants are indigestible for the human beings. So once the food is digested in the stomach, and the only things that digest in the stomach are animal foods, plants are sitting there not doing much. They're just sitting, waiting in the stomach. Then the whole mixture is passed into several meters of intestines where absorption of food happens. And the only things that can be absorbed are things which are properly digested, higher up in the stomach. And then the digestive process is finished in the upper part of the intestines by pancreas and liver and, other enzymes there. So again, plants don't contribute much. They give us some vitamins, some minerals, some cofactors, some phytonutrients, some juices. But the bulk of what your body is built from, protein and fat, because about 70% of human body by weight is water. Dry weight, what's left is 50-50, thereabouts, protein and fat. And when we analyze human protein and fat in the laboratory, we find that they are almost identical to protein and fat from meat, fish, eggs, and dairy. Plants have plenty of protein and fat in them, but they are completely different in their biochemical structure and completely inappropriate for building our protein and our fat. And on top of that, they're indigestible. So the only things that really feed us and maintain the physical structure you live in, your heavy bones, your muscles, your big brain, your lungs, your liver, the rest of you, the only foods that can maintain that physical structure, the temple where you live in, are animal foods. Plants go through the intestines and then they land in the bowel, the large intestine, at the end of our digestive system. That's where the majority of our microbes live. And that's an equivalent of the cow's rumen in us human beings. The difference is that in the cow, her rumen is at the beginning of her digestive system, before absorption happens. In us human beings, it's at the end. All the absorption already happened higher up. It's too late. So we do absorb some bits and pieces. We feed that microbial community. It gives us some lovely things there, but it cannot sustain you. So veganism is not a diet. We eat plants for cleansing because plants are powerful cleansers. They provide us with phenols, salicylates, lectins, phytates, and all sorts of other antioxidants and other things which keep our bodies clean on the inside. But plants cannot build your body, and they cannot maintain the physical structure that you live in. So veganism is not a diet. It is a form of fasting. You provide huge amount of cleansing for your body, but you're not feeding yourself to any degree. A cleaner body always feels better than a toxic one. So when a toxic person goes on veganism, in the first few weeks, they feel great. And that's when they write the evangelical blogs and books and tell the whole world how wonderful veganism is. And then at a certain point, after the body finished cleansing, it gives them a signal. I finished cleansing. Feed me. I'm hungry now. The way the body gives them this signal is it gives them desire for a roast chicken, for bacon and eggs, for fish, for pot of cream, for animal foods. Problem is, by then, our modern vegans have convinced the whole world that veganism is the best thing to go, and They're doing it for political reasons, religion reasons, for emotional reasons. They don't listen to their body. Instead of giving the body what it's asking for, they force it to continue cleansing when the body needs feeding. And at that point, the body has no choice but to start breaking down less important tissues, such as muscle and bone, to feed more important organs, the brain, the lungs, the heart, the liver, the digestive system. And the person starts losing muscle mass, starts losing bone mass. Libido disappears, all sexual functions, menstruations disappear, all of that stops because the body simply cannot waste resources on this sort of thing. And the person starts sliding into disease. I have seen so many sick vegans who destroyed themselves on every level. Veganism makes you weak on a physical level, on mental level, and on spiritual level. On all three levels, you become weak. And because the brain literally shrinks, we can confirm it with MRI scans in vegans, on long-term vegans. The brain matter shrinks in these people. They lose their brain capacity. They lose their cognitive ability, their logics, their ability to think, they just lose their brain. But of course, they don't realize it themselves. And other people around them may be too polite to mention this to them. And they become hangry, these people. This is a new term made out of two words, angry and hungry. Their brain is starving, so these people are angry. They become revolutionaries, black and white. They vigilantes. They go and berate everyone for eating meat, and they sort of, they're very evangelical because the brain is starving and their whole emotional profile changes. So all of this is described in this book. Please read it if you want to understand. So the GAPS diet is a feeding diet. It's a nourishing diet. It's a diet which allows your body to rebuild itself from quality materials. Many people in the Western world have their bodies built out of rubbish, forgive this word, that they bought in the supermarket. Because your body renews itself all the time. Every cell in the body has a short life. It works very hard, it becomes old, it dies, it gets shed off and removed, and a new baby cell is born to replace it. In every tissue, in every organ. In the gut, the cells that line your gut only live a couple of days. They have a very short life. So the body gives birth to trillions of new baby cells every single day. These cells need to be made from something. Building materials are required. Where do these building materials come from? From food. So if you're eating poor quality food, your body is built out of poor quality materials. And it doesn't feel good. You have symptoms. You're not feeling well. You don't have good energy. You just feel awful and achy, and you don't look your best. On the GAPS Nutritional Protocol, we eat the highest quality food, we prepare it correctly, and we focus on the animal foods as feeding, building foods. So in a year or so, or even earlier, some organs, you will rebuild your body out of high quality materials. And your whole, prospect on life will change immediately because, it's the same as driving a poor quality car that's half broken and driving a limousine which, works perfectly. These two things feel very, very differently, don't they?
Definitely. And I think, you raised so many good points, but the biggest one that's, I think, caught a lot of attention of anyone who's been eating largely a plant-based diet is some of the arguments in the past where, well, meats cause cancer, they cause a lot of chronic disease. Well, we have to realize that a lot of the meats are processed. They're filled with all sorts of toxins and accumulating all sorts of chemicals and compounds that if we can alleviate those, then we're dealing with a very different substrate and something that's far more nourishing and far less inflammation causing and degenerative processes are alleviated by switching those gears. So I truly think that that's been a big hiccup for a lot of us in the past. We often think that too much red meat's bad. We've been indoctrinated with those principles. But I think if we start to look at the quality and the sources of these foodstuffs, as you are saying so clearly for many years now, that's powerful. It's just the question is how do people get that impetus to get out of the supermarket? How do they get the impetus to take that effort? We have to be motivated by health and wellness and scared of achieving the painful outcomes that are happening around us all over the place.
First of all, we need to understand that we live in a world of misinformation, particularly nutritional misinformation. Where does the money come from? The majority of research in food in this world? From those corporations, which have in their pocket the industrial agriculture, the industrial food industry, the big pharma, the big medicine, the big governments. You know, lies, lies, lies upon lies. 99% of scientific papers published in the Western world are not worth the paper they printed on. Honestly, I have come to that conclusion. When I was trying to research vegetarianism, the first thing I did, I looked for some scientific papers on the subject. I haven't found one paper I could trust. Not one, amongst thousands. The biggest lie is the China study, that the whole mainstream is shaking and telling everybody, this is the proof we should all be vegan. Lie upon lie upon lie, and then wrapped up in lie. We live in a world where ethics and morals have gone. The mainstream is built on lies. So that's the first thing we need to understand. We cannot trust, anything the mainstream tells you. What I tell people is turn it upside down and you will see the truth. You cannot take it at the face value. That is the first thing. Secondly, of course, human body is a creation of nature. It's part of nature. Mother Nature gave us all the foods which is suitable for our bodies to consume. But we have to consume them in a shape and form that Mother Nature created them. If the animal was grown in a CAFO and fed antibiotics, steroids, and lots of grain, which makes them sick, and then this animal was driven for a whole day, for hours, to some huge abattoir, so all the glycogen's gone, because stress burns out glycogen in the muscle and the liver of the animal. So this is a huge stress to be loaded in a trailer and then driven, crowded in a trailer to some abattoir. And then at every abattoir, there's a queue. For hours, these lorries are queuing, and the fear is just in the air, and the screaming animals, it's horrendous. It's an ordeal. So by the time these poor animals who were grown inappropriately eventually are slaughtered, their meat is spoiled by stress hormones. Glycogen is it's a similar to starch molecule. It's a sugar. It's an animal form of sugar, which is in our muscles and in liver. And that's what makes the meat fermentable. And a lot of meats in traditional cultures have been fermented before they cooked, before they consumed. And that's what makes it fermentable. If an animal was subjected to so much stress before slaughter, then there is no glycogen. It's all gone. The stress has burnt it all out and filled, instead of glycogen, filled the muscle and everything else with very detrimental chemicals. So to start with that, and then the food industry, what it does with the meats and eggs and everything else. And, then it's all processed. That is why contact the farmer, connect directly with the producer, feel the place, visit the farm, feel the place. Is it run on love? Is it run on care? Are these animals loved? Are these birds loved? Do they look healthy and happy and loved? You can see a chicken that is loved. She walks differently. She looks differently. Her behavior is very different, than a chicken that has been not loved, and she knows that she's just being abused.
I don't know if the listeners heard, but throughout our interview, you've had some roosters in the background that sound like they're very well loved, and they've been sharing their sounds with us through this interview. It's been really fun to listen to as you're chatting. But listen, Dr. Natasha, thank you. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for all the work you've done and you're continuing to do in this space to help people live healthier lives and really to help not only ourselves, but the planet as well. So I'm sure you might even have a few more volunteers heading over to your farm after this interview. But where can people find you online?
My main website is called gaps.me, M-E, gaps.me. You'll find connect links there to we have gapstraining.com. That is an online company platform where we train practitioners. We train other people. We have certified GAPS practitioners, thousands of them around the world. We have certified GAPS coaches. It's like doctors and nurses, they often work together. And we have many other courses. We have courses for people who would like to go through the GAPS diet, but can't quite understand how to go about it. They can join a course, and very highly experienced GAPS practitioners will literally take them by the hand through the whole protocol and help them to heal. So we have many courses there. We have a GAPS online conference that we run every year in February. So you will find a link to that as well. So please join us. You will learn a lot of new information there. We have GAPS Science Foundation. We are doing research and we're publishing in peer-reviewed journals that GAPS works. We've already published several papers and we're working on more papers. So there will be, we're building a database of the evidence that the mainstream demands. So if you go online, you will find a lot of GAPS practitioners who run their own clinics and run their own training courses and have their websites. So the information is abundant out there on GAPS. Anybody can do it. And there is no disease that is an exception. Not one. People ask me these questions. Is there something GAPS doesn't work for? There isn't. Even cancer. We have a book written by a GAPS practitioner who healed her husband from the worst form of melanoma with the GAPS diet. So she's written a book on that subject. You will find it in the resources on my website, gaps.me, this book. So you can purchase that book. Even so-called genetic diseases. We now have a long list of so-called genetic diseases where they found something wrong with some gene somewhere or other, and the disease is unpronounceable. What we need to understand with genetics is that they're not cast in stone and they're not our destiny because we have epigenetics. It's the environment that we create inside our bodies and outside our bodies and our thoughts and our attitudes to life that choose which genes in your body are going to work and which genes are going to sleep forever and do nothing. Mm-hmm. We're all born with a full choice of genetics. Every one of us has genes to develop cancer, multiple sclerosis, rheumatoid arthritis, schizophrenia, whatever, everything. But by choosing your lifestyle, choosing your food, choosing your thoughts, controlling your thought process, and changing your lifestyle altogether, you are choosing your genetics. You can select genes which bring you good health and vitality. It's entirely in your will and in your power. So there is no disease that is an exception. Whatever the diagnosis, try the GAPS Nutritional Protocol. You may be surprised.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been wonderful. And Dr. Natasha, thanks again. And I look forward to meeting you in person soon. But listen, take great care. And thanks again for sharing your wisdom today.
Thank you for your work. Thank you for spreading the information.
You're very welcome. You take care.
Thank you.